Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me in today's session of Author Live. I'm in conversation with Devika Das, and we're going to talk about her exciting book, The Mind Game. So, first of all, welcome, Devika, to this session. Would you like to introduce yourself and your book to the audience, please?
So thank you, Ukiyoto, for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to discuss the book. First of all, I would say I am based out of Hyderabad, and I have written this book called The Mind Game. It talks about emotional intelligence and how if we understand our own emotions, it will be easy for us to monitor our behavior and respond rather than react.
Right.
So this is the main context of the book, basically to develop emotional intelligence.
Right. So we'll definitely get more into the book itself. But before we start, I wanted to ask you, Devika, your history with writing itself, because this book is definitely something so inquisitive. So I really wanted to know, where this interest for writing and sharing your knowledge came from.
So I have been writing since teenage, and writing was just a hobby. Like I just used to write when I used to be free from school and everything. I used to write, but publishing a book actually took place in 2018 when I thought of actually publishing the book called Mind Game because I really wanted to tell people that mental health should not be ignored and you should take care of your mental health. So I wanted to spread this message to a larger audience because before publishing a book, I used to publish blogs. I used to write my personal blog and I used to get a good traction. So I thought that, okay, I can write for the public. So why not try and write a book? So yeah, it's been a wonderful journey since then. I have authored 3 books, and it is a wonderful journey being an author, reaching to such a large number of people, and the message has impacted a lot of people. The book has affected a lot of people. So it's a good response till now.
That's great. And I really like, Devika, how you talk about that, you've always had this sense of trying to share your knowledge with the world, whether it be by blogging or by publishing your books, which brings me to the point that, there's a lot of research that has definitely gone into your book. So you talked about your inspiration, mental health, and just the fact that you want like people to know that, getting to know their emotions, getting in touch with them is something very important. So can you talk a bit about how you started planning this book? What kind of research went into it?
So I have been reading psychology since I was 15 years old, and I have been and theater also has helped me understand human behavior. And I have been practicing theater since college time. So and I think the art of understanding people, observing human behavior, etc., got me intrigued to know about why do people react in certain situations in a specific manner, and I wanted to study deeply about it. So I interviewed psychologists. I read a lot of psychology books and also fiction which talked about psychology and human behavior, like criminal psychology also I read. So it was very fascinating to understand the human mind because many people say it is very complex to understand. But if you focus, and it takes a lifetime to understand your own mind. How will you understand what is going on in somebody else's mind when you don't know your mind itself?
True. So, Devika, I love the fact that you mentioned how you were inspired by theater also and not just psychology, because I see that reflected in your book. I mean, when I was reading it, like those tiny tales that you had, or the fact that, you try to throw light into this topic both from spirituality, but also scientific, also from a bit of fiction. Such a beautiful way to, bring things together for people to understand. Because I believe, and I feel like you must have heard this from people as well, it can be a bit daunting, to go to a self-help book which kind of comes from a scientific perspective, because people might think that, maybe I won't understand what's going on in this book. So how do you think your book has made understanding scientific concepts, or even just literary or art concepts, to people, like,
So
easier for
basically, I since I have read a lot of psychology books and I have read a lot of self-help books, I
people?
realized that one thing is I did not want this book to be like very instructional based. Like
Right.
it should not be like do this, do that, because each person has their own coping mechanism and their own way of dealing with problems in life. So I thought let's make it conversational so that the book can be a listener and a friend to the reader. So
Mhm.
that was my thought behind writing this book. Yeah.
I see. And I'm sure that also helped it make a little less intimidating for the readers to pick up your book.
Yes, because many people say it is not a very, it leaves a very deep impact, yes, but it is not very hard to understand what I have
Right,
written.
right.
Yes, it will leave an impression on the reader's mind
Mhm.
after they finish the book. Yes, and they will start reflecting on their own life. Yeah.
Right, right. I also really like how you've used these very relatable examples, So where did these examples come from? Like, I know you mentioned that you have interviewed psychologists, but has your own life kind of, inspired certain parts of the book?
Yes, like simple living. The chapter on simple living
Yeah.
is something I practice in my personal life. I have very I have those some I follow some of the rules that have been laid down in the chapter,
Right.
and on a daily basis. And the chapter on anger management,
Mhm.
where I have given tips on how to control anger. Those are
Right.
something I have really practiced in my real life because I was very short tempered earlier, and now I have become a very calm and cool person to hang out with. Yeah.
Right. So, because we're talking a bit about, what kind of chapters there are in the book, so I just wanted to, dive a bit deeper into it. So, you have divided your book into like sections and subsections, right? And I really like how you start by talking about, why you should be mastering your emotions, why you should be reining it in. So, why do you think, Devika, it's something that people don't really think about? Because, like you mentioned, you want people to respond and not react, or like think before they react. So can you tell us a bit about how you have divided your book, and what was that process like?
So first of all, in my writing style, I prefer to list out the table of contents first before writing, because that is how I think non-fiction research takes
Mhm.
place, right? It helped me in conducting my research as well,
Mhm.
because it was an ordered flow of content, and I knew what is the order of content, and I had prepared the list of I had prepared the index before I started researching on the chapters. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And I really like, my favorite chapter was the part where you talk about analyzing people, and how to respond to them. I really like how it explores the fact that you need to understand where the other person is coming from as well. So there are these very unique perspectives in the book, right? So can you talk a bit about that particular chapter? I feel like this is something that people really connect with.
So basically, what happens is every person is different. You
Mhm.
are different from me. I am different from a third person. But
Mhm.
what happens really is like we have a certain stereotypical image in our mind that
Mhm.
okay, if the person is around say age 25 or 30, this person should behave in a certain manner. There is a way of behaving, there is a way of dressing, there is a way of carrying yourself, there is a way of or certain habits and attributes that we attach to the person. We have an image, like I am a marketing professional. In marketing we call it a persona, buyer persona. So in that way we have a persona about each and every individual who is around us. Like if I meet you in person for the first time, when I'm meeting a stranger for the first time, just from the external appearance, I will judge the person and say, okay, this person might be happy, sad, or very strict, or very reserved. And we don't try to go a step forward and try to understand the person. For that, I think first of all we should get rid of all our assumptions. It's okay, it's another human being, at least somebody from our own species. Somebody who looks like me, has same kind of 2 eyes, 2 legs, 2 arms, looks like me, and it is from the same species. So why, and the person can talk. When the person can talk, when the person can respond to me, why should I have a bias to that person just because the person is a stranger? So what happens is this kind of, if we get rid of analyzing people based on a stereotypes and try to understand the people, I think it will be a more harmonious society.
Right. No, that's really true, Devika. And I also feel like while I was reading this book, I also realized, how a lot of this we are not even taught in schools. When I feel like, this should be something that should be discussed at a very young age as well. So do you ever plan to, write something for kids, something that, people that age can start understanding? Because you talk so extensively about an emotion like anger, which is something that a lot of us understand but also don't understand where it comes from.
I think parents are the best teachers, and first parents need to understand this before we tell children that you understand it yourself. Because they see us, they see adults.
Right.
They see us adults and they observe us very, very accurately and very, very focusedly. And they try to imitate us, imitate our behavior. So it is first of all people like us, adults, who should first read the book and try to mend ourselves, rather than telling children, okay, do this, do that. If you start doing this, your child will also start doing it.
That's true.
So set an example for your child.
That's true. And not just like, your social situations, but also workplace, it works in so many different ways. There's a hierarchy, there's a social obligation and everything. So you talk a bit about, a happy workplace, like you put it. So can you discuss a bit about that section of the book?
See, hierarchy, management, top management, this is nothing new. We know that if an organization needs to have a top level, a middle level, and a bottom level.
Right.
But we should understand that we have been selected or hired for a skill set, because the organization needs our skills. We should always strive to become an asset for the organization and not a liability. I am also a manager now, and I always tell people, my team members, that don't come to work only because you are getting a salary check at the end of the month. Your workplace should be something that owes you or helps you develop your personality.
That's
because
true.
See, when you have the skill set and you are learning something every day from your job based on the projects that you work in, if you are not learning anything new, you should talk to your manager and you should tell that I want this kind of an opportunity. There should be an open communication between you and your manager.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, and especially after the pandemic, I don't think any manager will discourage these kind of open conversations where the mentee himself or herself wants to grow in his or her career. So I
Right.
don't think managers will discourage. But how many people actually take interest in their life or in their career, or they take, like, just because I am spending 8 to 9 hours per day, it is a very big chunk of time that I'm spending of my
Yeah.
life. If that is not worthwhile, I don't think so I am doing justice to my own self.
Hmm.
See, we are not robots. We are not robots. Even a person, be it any kind of work, you have been hired because of your skills.
Mm-hmm.
At least respect your skill set.
Right.
The education that you have. I think there is somewhere self-esteem attached.
Mm-hmm.
If you at the workplace also. First, you have to respect yourself at the workplace and for the role that you have been hired for. Only then will you make it a happy workplace. Otherwise, there are 100 number of complaints that you can file and say that the workplace is not good.
Right. And I really like, Devika, how your book, The Mind Game, is so well-rounded because, when we talk about emotions, we don't really look into every aspect of our life, even though this is something that really affects every aspect of our life. And talking about every aspect of our life, once again, I want to mention, I really like how, you bring in both spirituality and a scientific approach. So talking about spirituality, how do you think it goes hand in hand with the scientific approach of how you should master your emotions?
See, spirituality helps a person connect with the real self, the inner self,
Mm-hmm.
which is nothing but our conscience.
Right.
When you are spiritually aligned with the universe,
Mm-hmm.
I think you will be directed on your own.
Right.
You will be directed on your path. You will immediately know what situation you are in. Is it what kind of emotion you are experiencing at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and what is the appropriate response to the situation.
Right.
But when you are not, when your mind is in chaos,
Mm-hmm.
is chaotic, when it is thinking hundreds of thoughts and wondering, I
Mm-hmm.
think you don't get that clarity of life
Right.
or being in that moment. I think spirituality gives you that inner power
Mm-hmm.
or that essence of living in the present.
Right. So, Devika, when talking about spirituality or more like practicing spirituality, a lot of people kind of equate it with meditation, but you talk about a lot of methods in your book where you can practice spirituality. So, can you talk a bit about, different ways of practicing spirituality?
So basically, first is to focus on the moment or the activity which is going on.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if I am talking to you,
Mm-hmm.
and if my mind is not 100% present here in this conversation, obviously it will not be a fulfillment.
Yes.
You will not get a sense of fulfillment.
Right.
And you will not be happy. If whatever you are doing, do it 100% with 100% focus.
Mm-hmm.
That itself is meditation. Meditation, I would say, is not about practicing any ritual. It is about spending time with yourself. Whatever you are
Very
doing,
good.
just do it with focus.
Right.
Just do it with focus. Because, like I said, even if you are working at the workplace, how many hours do you actually focus on on the task that you are doing? And how many times is your mind distracted? Just make an analysis of that and you will understand what is your productivity.
Right. I also think that, in this very fast-paced life that we live in, it's highly important that we, have some time for ourselves, because there's so many distractions. You don't really sit with yourself anymore. When you're eating, you're watching something, or when you have some free time, you're scrolling on your phone or social media feed. So I really like how your book talks about, how to be one with yourself, which is something that people take very lightly, but this is something that's really important to sit with. So concluding with that, I would like to ask you, Devika, to maybe give a bit of tips from the book, not spoiling the book entirely, but maybe a few tips and tricks so that the audience, can understand what they can, take in from your book.
One thing I would say is, few of the tips I would give is, first, be authentic, be your real self. You don't need to copy others.
Right.
You have to be your real self. First of all, you need to love yourself the way you are. Have that much of confidence that you can take up any challenge in life. Don't worry about the outcome, whether it is a success or a failure. That's a different question. But at least take up the challenge that life throws at you.
Right.
Don't fear to take up any new challenge. I think sometimes we hesitate a lot and don't take the right opportunity, and then we regret. Life is very short to complain about regrets. Instead live in the present and have more memories to cherish rather than regrets. And one last thing I would say, that it's okay, whatever you were taught up to this moment of life, there is always an opportunity to unlearn, learn, and relearn. So learning is a continuous process. Never stop learning, because when you will be a student of life, the life will be amazing.
That's very well put, Devika. Definitely learning is a long time process that you have to be in. You need to learn, you need to unlearn, you need to relearn a lot of things. And I really like how this book of yours really puts into perspectives things that things we do unconsciously or subconsciously. We don't even realize what we're doing. But even reading this book, I realized so many things that I could be thinking about, so that I can focus a bit more on not just on myself, but every kind of situation around me. So definitely very inquisitive book, like I mentioned before. And with that, thank you so much, Devika, for joining me in this very interesting conversation. And would you like to end this with telling your audience something else, like what they can expect from you next, maybe?
So I have started my research for my next book. It's on color psychology, and basically how colors affect our life and affect our behavior in life. So my next book will be on that, and my research has already begun. It will be a combination of international research studies and a few interviews that I will have with designers, artists, and people who are associated with colors. Yeah.
Right. That's very interesting, Devika. I'm definitely looking forward to this one. So I will definitely be keeping an eye on your next book. But because this interview is about the mind game, so I would like to request the audience to maybe check out her book, Devika's book, The Mind Game. I'll be putting down the link in this video as well. So thank you again so much, Devika, and I hope you have an amazing weekend ahead.
Thank you, and happy holidays. May 2023 be a wonderful year for you and Ukiyoto.
Thank you so much. And you too. Bye, Devika.
Bye-bye.